Oh my gosh, that was the big white ape that I was after the year before. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to T3 Productions. We are back home. I'm back in my studio. Very happy to be back. Big thanks to my in-laws for letting us stay over for about almost 2 weeks. We finally got propane on Thursday, this past Thursday, and it feels good to be home. But I am very grateful for my in-laws for letting us come over and stay with them, keep warm, to have a place to sleep, a place to do our work, whether it's teleworking at my job, for the kids to do their schoolwork, and for me to do my vlogs, even though it was filmed on a mobile device, my iPhone. I think they turned out pretty good. I really do. I mean, if you all think that they turned out good, give this video a thumbs up. I mean, for what I was working with, I didn't want to go out and set my computer up and stuff like that. But for what I was working with, I think the Triple T Mobile turned out pretty good. Give me a thumbs up if you all like that. Let's get into this episode here. This is a story that I've been wanting to tell for a long time. This is the story of the Big Ten, and I hope you all watch it and listen to it, because to date, it is about the biggest buck I have ever harvested. 2019 deer season started off like it has the past few years. I am running late. Whenever I was living in Mountain Home, I was always early. Start feeding and planting in July and August. But since I moved to Fulton County, even though I do have private land that I get to hunt on, I still don't get out until like 2 or 3 days before season starts. That's going to change this year for sure. And it changed last year, and I was successful, but I wasn't successful where I was at. I started off the season up there where I'm hunting now, where I've been hunting this year. The first day, I seen just a real young doe, and I'm like, no, I'm not shooting that. She still had spots on her. No way I'm shooting that. Let her go. So then I moved the stand. You know, after the first weekend, I'm like, I need to get in the woods. So I moved into the woods at the honey hole. I don't know if you guys heard me talk about the honey hole, but if you do follow me on social media like Facebook, you know about the honey hole. That's where I see a ton of deer. So I moved there, harvested a deer there, but that's a different story. Then the cows got turned in. My buddy turned his cows in right there where the honey hole is. So I'm like, I think I want to move down the hill. So I moved down the hill, across the fence. The fence is connected to the tree that I'm sitting in. I moved the stand there, seeing deer. Well, to me, it just seemed like the rut started really early that year. As I was sitting there in the stand, I heard some chasing. I'm like, man, that's crazy. It's just a few weeks in October. That's crazy. But I heard chasing. They crossed the creek, turned around, came back up, and they stopped right there where my stand was. And it was 4 does and a little 6-point. About the size, that one right there. I said, nah, I'm not going to shoot that buck. I got 1 buck tag left, and I'm not going to shoot it, blow it on him. I'm going to give him some time, let him grow a little bit. The deer started picking me off there, because where the tree is that I'm sitting in, it's at the bottom of the hill, and like right behind me is where it starts to go up. So I'm like, yeah, they're picking me off. Every time they're starting to pick me off now. I'm sitting there thinking, maybe I need to move my stand. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I need to move it. But then I get to thinking, all these deer that I'm seeing, except for this group that came in, are coming in from a block of woods that's to my right. So I climb out of the stand, and I go walking through there, and I found this shelf, and I found some buck rubs and a scrape. I need to sit here. I'm surrounded by a field, and it just goes up to this big hill. I need to sit at the foot of this hill. This is where it's going to happen, and I'm going to get another deer right here. That following weekend, I'm like, all right, well, I know what I'm going to do. I just need to do it. Well, my feed was gone. I'm like, well, there's deer coming into here. So I go up and sit that Saturday, heard something coming, go to grab my bow, and I start looking for it. Turned out it was a cow. I'm like, oh, cow's over here eating my feed. So I took all my stuff down. It's a very rainy day. It just started pouring down rain. I got to get the stand set up. So I set up the stand and left. Came back the next day whenever it quit raining, and I put my feed out, and then I left. I'm in a pretty good tree. Like I'm high. I could see really good, but there is some brush around, especially to my right. And that's where the deer are coming from most of the time. And I kept seeing the deer out there in the field. I'm like, maybe I need to move closer to the field. Well, what really did me in is I took a vacation day, was sitting in the stand, and had this little buck walk in, had a couple of does walk in. They walked out. That Saturday, I went in, and I got in there late, and I'm setting everything up. I just put my bow on the bow hanger. I'm strapped in, and I turn around and sit down and put on my gloves, and I heard something walk and look down, and I see a giant buck standing there, and he was in the brush. Oh my goodness. Well, he walks out and he gets about 25 yards away and he's quartered really hard away from me. But I didn't want to take that chance of shooting through the brush like that. But he got in that field and his horn just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The clearer the land was, the bigger he got. I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to move this stand. Got down, walked to the edge of the field. Thought I found a tree that I could sit in, but I wasn't really confident in that tree. Then again, I wasn't up in the tree, so I didn't know how good I could see or anything. I told my wife, I said, I want to go in earlier today so I can move my stand. I got in about 1 o'clock, tear down the stand, and I look at the tree that I picked to sit in, and it was leaning really hard. I'm like, no, I ain't going to sit here. So I got to walking around a little bit, and about 25 yards, 30 yards from the tree that I was sitting in, I found this really nice hickory tree. I need to sit here. Set the stand up, got set up, put the bow up. I'm ready to go. I'm done by 1:30, 1:45. About 4 o'clock, I hear some walking, and it was a windy day. It was like God telling me, here's your deer. So he stops the wind. I hear this deer walking, and I look over to my right, and I see this giant wide buck. Well, that's him. That's the one I was after. I grab my bow, and he's sitting there looking at me, and I'm reaching around really slow with my left hand, and I get my bow in my hand. Well, he starts to back up a little bit, and then he turns and he starts walking away. I'm like, if I'm going to get a shot, I need to get it now. So I grab my bow, and then he starts to go broadside. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm fixing to get a shot at this deer. I put my release on the D-loop, draw back as soon as he got behind the cedar tree. I love cedar trees. That seems to be like whenever I can draw back the most. Gets behind and he walks out and he stops, and he's about 15 yards broadside. For some reason, he stopped and looked out in the field. So I'm sitting there drawing back on him. I'm like, here's my shot. And I shot. And as soon as I shot, the deer just folded up and dropped. Holy crap, I was overfilled with emotions. He just started kicking and thrashing around. It was the biggest buck of my life. From the time that I seen him until the time he quit kicking was 5 minutes. It was a long 5 minutes. I remember just checking my phone. You guys want to know how all this went down. You know, how do you know the time? Because I was talking to my wife. I was texting my wife, and it was like, I sent her the last message around 4 o'clock. It was like about 3:57 or something like that, and I put my phone in my pocket, and then I heard the walking. Right there he was. So that's how I know it was 4 o'clock. And then checked my phone because, you know, you got to put the time that you harvested the animal, and it was 4:05. After he quit kicking, I got down, walked over to him, put my hands on him for the first time. I'm like, man, that had to have been the buck that I seen this morning. He was just huge. I started counting the points. I got to looking at his horns. I'm like, oh my gosh. That was the big wide 8 that I was after the year before in 2018. I said to myself, I said, I'll harvest this deer if he comes in, but he'd be a prettier buck as a 10-point. I'll be dadgum if he didn't grow 2 more points. Beautiful, wide 10-point buck. He's at the taxidermist right now. At Judd's Taxidermy, that is. I think that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. We are back in T3 Productions. Triple TV is back home. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you have not yet. It just takes not even a second. Flip that phone up, hit that subscribe button, flip it back over, continue to watch this. It might take you more than about a second, because once you hit that subscribe button, y'all hit that notification bell so you guys know whenever my videos are hot off the press. And as always, don't forget to share. I'll see y'all on the next one.